Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our second webinar in our series on rubber and roading. Today, we're looking at the crumb rubber and roading action plan and ways in which we can help build the market for that. So, the plan comes off the back of a lot of work over many years in terms of value that we can add from crumb rubber as a modified binder in asphalt and bitumen. So that's what we're working towards, and today's session will be framing up the key obstacles and barriers that we want to overcome and the tools and mechanisms we're going to use to do that. So if I can just share my presentation with you guys now, and then we'll get started. Right, hopefully everybody can see that. You give me a thumbs up, Jeremy, if that's all good. So I'm going to do a bit of an intro and scene setting, framing up, if you like, of tyre-wise, why rubber and roading is important, some of the rationale behind why we're taking this path. And then Jeremy Wu is going to join and present a lot of the technical sides of things around crumb rubber modified binders and roads, why that's important, and set the scene a little bit for what that action plan looks like. And many of you will know Jeremy, but he will do his own introduction at the time. But Jeremy has been working in this space for quite some time as a materials scientist, so brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise. He's here today as the chair of the Technical Advisory Group Products and Markets, which is an advisory group set up to advise Tyre-wise specifically on the developments in products and markets and areas by which we can focus our energies. So that is his function here today. So I'm just going to briefly cover off the existing Tyre-wise performance and how we've got to here. Some of the rationale behind the waste hierarchy and why we would be putting our energies into using crumb rubber as a binder, how that aligns with national procurement guidelines, and then Jeremy will carry on with his explanation as to his function and how he's going to drive that action plan with the scheme. So to that end, how are we doing? Well, we're doing pretty well. The scheme, as designed, has collected over 7,500 million tyres, carted those around. 10 million in total. So the supply chain, if you like, has been set up to collect those end-of-life tyres, and it's done a very good job of that. We have the next challenge, having set that up and executed that within the first 18 months of operation. And then we're on to our next challenge, which is actually delivering more value. So for context, all of the systems are in place to free up some of those original barriers that existed before Tyre-wise, which is around supply. How would we get the tyres? So we really have addressed that with regulation, and Tyre-wise has closed the loop, if you like, in terms of making sure that we can secure that feedstock. And why is it important that we focus our energies on driving value? Well, we're following the World Business Council for Sustainable Development's matrix there, which really highlights how you want to drive value. And for a product like a tyre, which has an intrinsic value, we're trying to drive that up the hierarchy where we can get some reuse, or we can apply it to substitute products that are imported. So it's really important when it comes to a value proposition. You've got a intrinsically valuable product there in a crumb, in a tyre, and let's put that to use in the best case possible, which we believe is as a crumb rubber modified binder. So that's what we're going to do. And a lot of these other segments, if you like, or in the market, are really important as well, because you can't just focus everything on the highest value, but some of these are stepping stones to reach that value. So we're very fortunate that we have some representation across a lot of this, but our goals are to shift it so that we can actually grow demand in some of those other areas. Okay, so what that looks like a demand pull-through model. So we've we've established the front end where we can secure the tyres at end of life, and we've set that system up to engage every stakeholder along that pathway. Now that we have managed to do that, where do we want to get to? Well, we want to add some value over time, and the way in which to do that is to drive the crumb rubber and roading piece the most. And so we're starting from a pretty low base. So our goals are to increase the value. So we've got some tools to help us do that. And one of those is using some funding to help break down some of those barriers so that we can get rubber and roading over a longer period of time and make that actually a sustainable pathway. So Jeremy will cover off what that looks like in that plan and the action plan. So it's a pretty lofty ambitions and really good targets and things that we want to meet. And it is a all of market level of engagement. So we're really cognizant of the fact that it takes everybody in that value chain to play their part. But these are the right goals to have. So really important, it's the use of public funds. So we want to be delivering value, as I've said. There are some caveats with that. We want to follow good procurement rules and guidelines and be able to demonstrate that. So with anything, we have a responsibility along those lines. If you think about how we try to drive the value, we're trying to drive that through making really good decisions which return good outcomes. So, and that's across the supply chain, whether we consider centralized procurement from government or via councils or anybody in the rest of the value chain, including road manufacturers, processors of tyres. So all of those decisions are actually for the benefit of New Zealand Inc., if you like. So we're making sure that framework exists and we're following that. Cool. So that's a little bit of a background of why we are embarking on this pathway and why it's a good thing to do. So I'm going to hand over to Jeremy now, and he's going to walk you through a little bit around the action plan, his role in that action plan as the chair, and some of the particulars around the technical aspects of what we have to overcome. So I'll pass you over to Jeremy.
Thanks, Trevor. Kia ora koutou, ko Jeremy Wu toko anō. I'm kind of speaking to you from sunny and breezy Te Whanganui Aotearoa, Wellington. First of all, thanks to TyreWise for this opportunity to co-present with Trevor. I'm here under the capacity, as Trevor said, as the chair of the Products and End Markets tag, which I've had the pleasure of being part of for the last almost 2 years. I thought I'd quickly cover off my background just in case the people don't know me. So as Trevor said, I was trained as a material scientist for almost more than 20 years now, and resource efficiency has always been a area of interest of mine. I've had over 10 years of experience in roading materials research and advisory through my previous employer, WSP, who was formerly known as Opus. And to kind of sum up the role of the tag that I'm chairing, kind of together with the various members of the industry, if you like, we provide insights to Auto Stewardship New Zealand and the TyreWise scheme managers, mainly just to aid the successful implementation of the scheme for the best interest of New Zealand Inc. Our remit is very clear, and that is to gather information and relay some of the advices on potential opportunities that aligns with the market development strategy that TyreWise have developed. And of course, we anticipate that the tasks at hand, as well as the makeup of the technical advisory group, will evolve over the course of the scheme as time progresses and also as the market come and go. So this is also why the action plan, together with the TyreWise grant funding mechanism, is of huge interest to our technical advisory group, because they are critical enablers. Next slide. So speaking of leveraging, is there a slide for? Oh yeah, cool. I'll just before I touch on the action plan, I thought just a quick summary of some of the kind of, just as a reminder of some of the key benefits of rubber enroding. One of the drivers for the scheme to focus on rubber enroding, as Trevor said, is that it is one of the key markets and has a plethora of benefits besides waste minimization. And if I have to kind of break it down into the 6 items that you see, I'll probably sum it up in kind of 2 overarching themes. One is on technical performance, and the other one is around value alignment, and that could be environmental, social, as well as economic. Not only can tire-derived rubber be used as a binder or bitumen modifier for improved performance, it also offers a form of or different forms of noise reduction that may be attractive to some of the road users and owners. Rubber and roads, if you like, as a kind of a generic kind of overarching term, is built on technologies that are common in several other countries, including our nearest neighbour, Australia, whom we have heard from Anna D'Angelo from NTRO in the last session. And where in Australia, tire-derived rubber is actually a specified, acceptable alternative to other types of polymer modifiers for bitumen manufacturing. And if we look at the value alignment, I mean, if I look at my life outside of work, my friends, my kids, my non-technical neighbors often ponder, surely there are solutions to utilize their locally derived waste, in this case, end-of-life tires, as a resource for further use. And following what Trevor has said about the waste hierarchy, I guess from the TAG's perspective, the roading sector can certainly play a key role to the kind of the holistic solution. And I guess from the economics perspective, in recent headlines, the cost pressure for maintaining New Zealand's infrastructure has also put a lot of strain on our asset owners, and it flows on to our designers, consultants, contractors, constructors, as well as the road users in general, and on how do we do everything in a cost-effective manner. And where we are now, I would say, like what everyone says, timing's everything. It would appear with the support of TireWise incentives plus the current economic landscape that a lot of the tire-derived products that are destined for the roading application becomes quite an attractive proposition to consider. I'll touch on the kind of the international case studies, if you like. Trevor, if you go back to the the slides on evidence, yeah, thank you. There's definitely no denying that there are plenty of research and development initiatives, pilots, trials, case studies, and not to mention business as usual operations from several other jurisdictions that dates back decades. And I think from my perspective, TireWise, together with its stakeholders, will absolutely utilize a lot of that know-how and experience without trying to reinvent the wheels. But international research can only get us so far. I think it's safe to say that our road controlling authorities still need some New Zealand context, and based on the research that the New Zealand Transport Agency have commissioned over the years, there remains a small portion of R&D that must be undertaken in New Zealand. And not only that, I'll probably reiterate Trevor's point that there is a responsibility from the industry as well as authorities to ensure that any of the perceived risks are considered and mitigated, so that there's no, we're trying to avoid any unintended consequences. For example, one obvious question will be, do we have appropriate specifications and guidance to ensure that the best practice is conducted and that a acceptable level of due diligence is carried out to ensure the safety and the expected performance of New Zealand's road network? So I'm kind of referring to anything that gets applied to the roading sector that is tire derived. Luckily for us, we have roading contractors, designers, consultants, people with know-how that work across New Zealand as well as other jurisdictions that use rubber in roads. So there's no doubt that we have this access to the technical capability and experience right now, and hence why I sound like a broken record here, but there's a real focus on the stakeholder engagement, and that's a core part of the scheme. Is and also mirrored in the action plan that we're trying to ensure that those involved in the value chain is informed, reassured, and be confident about this initiative. And this will only happen by conducting trials, pilots, demonstration of the removal of the identified barriers. Moving on to the next one, I guess talking about the action plan. Next slide. Oh, yep. So Tyrewise's first research investment was actually maybe a couple of years ago, undertaken by WSP in conjunction with the New Zealand Transport Agency to produce an action plan for rubber and roads. So the project itself effectively updated a prior report which indicated a number of barriers, one of which is around the security of supply, and that security of supply of being the right material in the right place in the right time. So the action plan kind of as a whole is structured with the focus on two core applications in road construction, and that's not to that's asphalt and chip seal, and it's not to take away any value in other potential end market applications, end user applications such as road furniture, for example. That's also relevant to the roading corridor. The plan articulates what remains to be done to normalize tire-derived rubber in our road, and is essentially a foundation document for Tyrewise's investment in rubber and roading. Next slide. So just a couple of kind of snippets of the action plan for each of the applications, as I mentioned, and for those of you interested in doing a deeper dive into the plan, you can explore it through Tyrewise's website under rubber and roads. One of the critical barriers to rubber, kind of tire-derived rubber's uptake in New Zealand roading sector, if you like, over the years, and even kind of prior to almost during the inception of Tyrewise as a concept, 10, 12, I'm not sure, almost 15 years ago, has been the security of supply. And for me personally, it was really amazing to see how the collection network have matured over the last couple of years since the launch of the scheme. And there's certainly promising signs of onshore processing capabilities. And like all things, uptake of the tire-derived products in the roading sector has been a chicken and egg situation, supply and demand. In roading, given that there's a significant portion of our road surface that is chip seals, the challenge has always been how to overcome the specific requirements of spraying crumb rubber modified binder. And for those of you who have tuned into the first webinar, you would have heard about some of those experiences and know-how through the Australian perspective. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty technical aspects of the operation, but it's worth acknowledging that, like all technical products, to ensure that it achieves its intended performance and durability, there are specific requirements and operating conditions for application. For instance, a quick key question lies in how will New Zealand industry address the potential implications of using a relatively high application temperature that is required when you use a crumb rubber modified binder. To be honest, the good news is that none of these technical challenges or operating conditions are insurmountable. There are technologies out there that will address it easily, less so, or require further R&D. And I've covered off earlier about the kind of the multiple benefits and considerations. It's a real balancing act, and that's from the perspective of the asset owner as well as the applicators. Talking about the different applications and their requirements, one of the very unique barrier that is to New Zealand is the mandated use of emulsified bitumen for chip sealing operations. To perhaps oversimplify the whole technology, bitumen emulsion is essentially a form of road binder that can be handled and sprayed at a relatively lower temperature for health and safety reasons. And like all products, there are pros and cons, but that's also not the purpose of this webinar to debate that. But as part of the development of the action plan, the implication of emulsification of tire-derived modified tire rubber-derived bitumen remains a challenging but technically viable pathway for New Zealand as far as the chip sealing market goes. And I think that the real positive news is that we have TireWise and its various mechanisms to enable the sector, the roading sector, to validate various products and manufactured goods for their performance, environmental impact, and the whole of life cost, because the technology or technologies may well tick a number of boxes, given the economic landscape that we're in. Next slide. Cool. So you see lots of different boxes. From the action plan, there are a couple of charts summarizing the kind of the areas to be validated, and they're kind of divided into the type of barriers, the key concerns, and general direction in terms of where further investigation is required. So from my technical advisory group's perspective, these projects will in time provide the core evidence to support rubber and roads initiatives. And I guess this is where I kind of daylight the grant funding that Trevor mentioned, and for those of you involved with TireWise would be very well aware of. It's an excellent opportunity for the applicants or even the successful applicants to support the scheme by generating solid evidence towards, what the sector may be wondering or needing. Even looking beyond roading, if we look at what Tyre Stewardship Australia have achieved through their voluntary scheme and through the work that they have funded and supported over the years, then it is certainly a very exciting prospect for New Zealand, because we're just about to embark on our first round of projects that will be the enabler to what's to come in this particular end market. I'm happy to move, John. Trevor, if you have anything else to add to the grant funding. If not, I can happy to move on to the next.
Yeah, I just add a comment there, Jeremy, around the signals that we sent to market in the release of the Puna Tōrema Fund were very specifically around areas that would help us in this action plan. So particularly addressing those barriers around supply, demand, and performance. So as a result of that, we had really positive feedback from applicants, very specific feedback and their applications around helping to shift that. And maybe just a little bit of pulling that together. This is as much as the fund is for individual organisations or institutions to help support the action plan. It is part of a broader portfolio of research which TireWise wants to build, and in your role as chair of that product and markets is to understand the value add for that, right? So from a schemes perspective, really trying to build the resume or the portfolio of value added research that relates to this in New Zealand. So we're pretty excited about progressing that soon. And it's helping to shift the needle a little bit to ensure that runway that I showed earlier on, or that steep ramp that we've got to climb, we can actually achieve that. So
Thanks, Trevor.
Do you want to go to the next one?
Yeah, sounds good. Right. Just thought I'd quickly cover off a case study or two without really going into details, but just to kind of frame the little bit of context. In the South Island, there have been historically huge volumes of stockpiled tyres, primarily through land use changes but also mining. Currently, all the tyres that are collected through by Tyrewise through the transport network are exported unprocessed to verified foreign end markets because there's simply no processing capacity in the South Island. And thinking about the national demand and the supply, the national demand for end-of-life tyres is largely met by the volume that's being generated in the North Island. So the trial that you see on the slide, as well as for those of you kind of in the know, there was another one in kind of similar sort of time frame done in the Selwyn district, represent a huge opportunity to change the market situation in the South Island. It gives the processors the confidence to invest in capability. It also gives the procurers and the asset owners of roading a quality kind of pilot sites for ongoing research, ongoing monitoring and evaluation. So I think just kind of want to acknowledge giving huge credits to these organizations for taking the initiative, but I also suspect that this won't be the last time we hear from them as well. So I guess I want to maybe go to the next slide, just to round things up a little bit. Yeah, so once again, kind of reiterating what I said and what Trevor has said before, from the tag point of view, it's really encouraging to see our roading contractors leading by example. And let's face it, it's an important step. If you look at it, what's happening here is what they're doing is de-risking for the key stakeholders, and that includes the asset owners, the procurers, the road users, the suppliers, as well as the contractors themselves, and includes the designers and the consultants out there thinking what is this rubber and road technology. And I guess it's safe to say that we expect more to come from the industry. So just kind of reiterating the importance of stakeholder engagement. It is a core part of the scheme and will continue to be as we embark on the kind of the market development journey. And that's not just for the roading sector. This webinar is a classic example of this effort. It's part of an extensive series of webinars to maintain momentum and to daylight what is happening behind the scenes and the opportunities in front of us. So by keeping the supply chain informed, it kind of builds confidence, it builds familiarity. As mentioned before, the establishment of Tyrewise provides the structure and the critical mass, and we can shift away from anecdotal evidence to a platform that offers structure and rigor. But just remember that the structure is not meant to be rigid. And I said it before, the tags are designed to bring different perspectives into the conversation, and we'll continue to review and reevaluate that as the scheme progresses. I see plenty of opportunities, if you like, for key stakeholders to take ownership of the initiative with Tyrewise support. From our perspective, we need national bodies and platforms to support the advocacy, as well as supporting the implementation of the various pathways that's identified along the way. In the roading space, just kind of throwing a few names out there, where we're thinking of the National Surfacing and Pavements Technical Groups. That's typically made up of a wide spectrum of stakeholders in the roading sector. The road efficiency group that represents your local road controlling authorities, as well as the NZTA, and industry bodies like the Aggregate and Quarry Association, CCNZ in terms of Civil Contractor New Zealand, and even road user advocacy groups like Transporting NZ. All of them have a part to play and to, I guess, help to build that consistency in terms of the messaging and the mahi that we're doing. So probably just to close off, on behalf of the products and markets tag, I'm really excited about the next phase of the scheme, where we are really seeing, excuse the pun, where rubber meets the road. We look forward to hearing from the successful applicants and the projects. I think knowledge sharing is key, and I hope that each organization make the most out of the engagement with, coordinated by TyreWise to ensure that the rich data and information that is consolidated during and after the completion of each projects, and so that there's continuity and momentum as the market matures and emerges. I think that's me. Last slide. Trevor, back to you.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, look, just to reiterate some of those themes, year 1 and 2 for TyreWise was proving that we could build the system to enable recovery of end-of-life tyres. And then really beyond, so years 3 and beyond, are really about that utilisation and driving that value. So this piece of work around crumb rubber and roads is a big part of that. But it does sit with everybody, all stakeholders involved. So Jeremy's articulated well the oversight, if you like, or the advisory function that his tag has to help the scheme. And our role is really to, from a stakeholder engagement perspective, to ensure that we've got the right tools to help us shift the needle there. So the fund being one, and then really the stakeholder management, so ensuring that everybody understands the journey that we're going on. So that's not easy when you're talking about delivering enduring value for New Zealand over time. So we fully expect there to be some humps and bumps along the way, but it's a challenge worth tackling, and that's one that we're keen on doing. So for any queries or questions or insights, or if you need to reach out, happy to do that via the website or via myself directly. But there's a stack of information on the website as well I would refer you to. So if it's specifically around rubber and roads, you can just whack that in the search function on the TyreWise website. But I think we'll conclude the webinar there. We'll just check if we've got a series of questions and a Q&A. We've got some in the chat. Kitty or Larissa, can you see any questions in there?
Yep, in the Q&A, yes, there's quite a few.
Great.
Richard says, this tag group holds a lot of responsibility to make the roading happen. Do we have a timeline when the next meetings are taking place? Is that tag meetings, I think?
Yeah, so the tag meetings, I can answer that. The tag meetings are held as and when required. So to be honest, a large part of the value piece for the tag was having the fund executed and delivered, which was where we've spent a lot of our energy. So in answering that question, soon will be the short answer to that. We are due for another meeting soon. Another one there,
Peter Morrissey, does TyreWise connect with industry associations in New Zealand? We are connected with one in North and South Island at Hunternet. Put a link in there.
Yep, absolutely. So relevant stakeholder groups across industry, we're happy to connect with. The challenge being what level of contact or value that you need from us, and vice versa. So we're happy to engage with anybody who's keen to help us along this path. All of the information, if you need, even from a starting point, you can find it on the website, or you can contact me. That's fine.
Richard Upperton says, hey team, how realistic is it that over 10,000 of rubber would be used in roading in year 3, end of 2026?
Over 10,000.
Yeah, which is probably a little bit different than the targets.
Yeah, look, I mean, Rich is probably in a better place to answer that question, to be honest. But all of our endeavours are geared towards that trajectory that we're on. So, look, we might be ahead of the run rate or behind the run rate at various points in time, but that's the objective. So, yeah, all of the stakeholders are involved in helping that come to fruition.
So there's a little bit of chat around that in the Q&A. Steve Guy says, without the support of NZTA in terms of design standards and funding, it makes it difficult to support delivery. There's a couple of things here that aren't really questions, they're more like comments. Steve also asked, what is the R&D that still needs to be undertaken? As some are seeking 10 years of NZ-specific case studies, if this is going to be expected, nothing will be undertaken. But he also says NZTA have only mandated emulsion on their own roads. Local councils can use hot bitumen to help deliver better outcomes.
Yep, quite right. Jeremy can probably articulate the key, well, he's kind of covered those off in terms of the barriers that are represented in that action plan, and the research is actually designed to address those barriers. So yeah, there are different horizons in terms of R&D, market ready applications, etc. So but they are complementary, and as I said, this isn't a solvable task in 2 or 3 years. This is we're taking the long view on this. So every endeavour has been undertaken in terms of building the base on R&D, addressing the right problems, and then making sure that we're consistent in that strategy. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah. Nagius, if I'm saying that right, it says, was the trial on the South Island conducted with asphalt mix or spray sealing? I'm assuming that's the Fulton Hogan trial. And Steve comments that the University of Canterbury has been utilising crumb rubber in excavations to reduce vibration. I think that's the research that Laura's involved with. Yes. There's a case study on our website about where that's at. And Steve says that he's doing more rubber surfacing next season and is happy to share with everyone.
Brilliant. Champion.
Peter asks, is that Australian crumb rubber asphalt acceptable by road specifications or other regulation? I guess he's asking if the Australian standards could be applied here.
Well, we use Austroads, so Australia, New Zealand.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? There. Hang on, there's a couple of comments in the chat. Can you see those, Trevor?
There's
a little bit of stuff about, hang on, where are we? Somebody had made a comment that seems to have disappeared about inhalation of particles.
Yeah, so if I just frame up the key points of the action plan were to address, as I said, demand and supply, but also performance and environmental factors as well. So one of those things is odour, and I think you saw on Jeremy's slide there, we're talking about all of the effects of the use of using this product instead of the existing product. So which does include understanding more or doing the research into odour mitigation, anything that you would normally do some validation on from a product's perspective is what we're saying has to be done with this product as well. So
Trevor, can I I'll just kind of add to your comments just in response to Mark's question. There has been most of the published work have been derived from the US, and that dates back a couple of decades ago. That's not to say it's inconclusive or we can't learn anything from it. I think what's important, as Trevor said, is for the New Zealand industry to reassure ourselves that as responsible PCBU, that when we apply any of these new or existing technology, that we cover off the health and safety controls to ensure that we don't put any additional risks, or those additional risks can be managed in a safe and reasonable way. So hence why the action plan encourages the sector to look at where are the gaps of knowledge and do further investigation into it. And then probably just another point of, yes, this isn't about doing R&D for the sake of continuing doing R&D. I think this is a good encouragement that if there are such a good interest and demand for this type of material and the type of questions and concerns that you individuals or the organization that you're representing, then it's really good to kind of share that information with TyreWise through the various tags, so that it helps us to shape, dare I say it, the next set of research priorities, for example, if we haven't done that. So it's very targeted investigation rather than we're just doing for the sake of academic research.
Dr. Linda Mitchell has commented that there are a couple of recent Australian studies on fuming and crumb rubber asphalt.
Right.
And I've also posted a link to the global end-of-life tyre research portal.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kitty. Okay, if we don't have any additional questions, I think we can call it a day there. Thank you very much, everybody, for your attendance. There will be, I believe, 3 or 4 more webinars in this series, and we will post the dates of those once we have confirmed our speakers and our speaking slots. So look out for those. But yeah, the message is from here that this is our action plan. This is what we're progressing. We want everybody involved. So yeah, stay in touch. Brilliant. Thank you very much.